You are listening to the Enormocast.
Hey folks, you don't have to have some Frenchie named Jean-Jean Terrifique step on your hand as he blows past you on some belay to know that our sport is growing more popular and therefore more crowded every passing moment. And the sheer numbers are starting to have a real impact on the climbing areas that we cherish. Black Diamond and the Access Fund recognize this, and they want you to recognize that it's up to us to work together to minimize the degradation of the once wild and free climbing experience. They've come up with a thing called the Pact, a list of 10, I don't want to call them rules because climbers don't like rules, so we'll just call them guidelines. It's all pretty basic stuff about how to act when you're at the cliff. Now before you look at this list, you're probably going to think to yourself, well, I'm a really responsible user. I don't cause any problems. And yet, I think you'll find a few of them there that you've probably broken, even in the last couple weeks. I mean, what if you are the pain in the ass that everyone else is rolling their eyes at? Would you know? Probably not. So you better go have a look at the Pact and commit to being a better and more conscientious member of the community. So go to blackdiamondequipment.com and look for the Black Diamond Rock Project, or go to accessfund.org and click on the Pact for more information. That's the Pact from Black Diamond and the Access Fund.
We gotta get
Listen, where are you playing in town? You playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a
the big
house. We
place
sold
that
it out.
side of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold it out.
20,000
seats.
You really should.
Look, you better get up there before you panic. Those pens are loose. You're very good. I have really enjoyed climbing with you. I don't think so. But we shall continue with style. Good weather, bad weather. Now or later, anytime for climbing.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes.
And don't forget, you can go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Normo at checkout to get a discount on great coffee. And you can go to pureholds.com and enter Normo to get a discount on great Colorado-made climbing holds. Both the coffee and the holds will give you the power to crush your enemies and see them driven before you.
And now back to the show.
How do I start this thing? I go. Oh, hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Kalous. It is November 13th, about 9:05 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And this is episode 70. I'll edit that in later because I don't know what episode it's going to be.
I love those.
I just left a space there where I'll just come in and go like 70.
Exactly.
72.
I noticed that change and I loved it.
Right. So I'm sitting in Studio A in the kitchen / living room of my house with three guests for a listener mail episode. I have been warning about a listener mail episode for a while. I think the last one we did was over a year ago, actually. And so we're back to listener mail. I'm going to introduce my guests, Simon Longacre.
Hello.
Is that how you pronounce your last name? Longacre?
Sure, Longacre.
Oh, okay.
It's Pennsylvania Dutch.
Oh, nice.
It's actually how many acres you can plow in one day with one ox.
Is a long acre.
Oh. Yep.
And how big is a long acre in general?
We never really got to the bottom of that.
Depends on the size of the man.
They didn't give that one up at the family reunion.
Oh, gotcha. Simon is a local climber from here. He lives in Glenwood Springs. But more importantly, Simon is one of the amigos that I have gone to the Lander Climbing Fest with the last couple of years. So any of you Lander Climbing Fest people may remember this tall, strawberry blonde, strapping man walking around waving a tequila bottle at you.
Sombrero.
We can go to any festival.
Exactly.
We just need an invite.
Yes.
We bring fun anywhere.
Totally. Across the table from me is another local climber, Steve Dilk, an employee at our local secondhand sporting goods store, the Ragged Mountain Sports, and also one of the compatriots on the annual trips to Lander.
Excellent.
Thanks for coming, Steve.
Thanks for having
me. Are
me,
you okay?
Chris.
You just kind of clammed up there. For
Totally.
a second.
Well, I didn't know what exactly I had to say.
And on my right, if you were here, you'd be able to see this. This isn't really good podcast etiquette to talk about what's visually happening in the room, is a return guest, Tracy Wilson, the better half of the Splitter Choss partnership, BJ Sabara's lovely wife, and also a return guest from episode 15, Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon. And thanks for coming, Tracy. And Tracy is an educator and also coaches the climbing team at our local high school, one of the local private high schools here, Colorado Rocky Mountain School. And she's currently nursing an injury from a climbing fall, breaking her foot in how many places, how many times?
5 bones and 6 fractures.
But no surgery.
No.
So, yeah, broke a hold, hit the ground, finished the route. Right?
Yeah, it was complete denial. It was just a sprain.
Yeah.
Badass.
Very proud.
So I brought these guys in to discuss some of the things that you guys have sent in terms of concerns and questions and advice that you've sought from the Enormocast. But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about my emailing problems. When I was looking back through the emails, kind of looking for some of these ones I kind of remembered. I should probably file them away as soon as I read them. But I realized that there's great big gaps in my responses to emails. Like I found that I think like June, up until about the Landerfest, actually, there were some problems in there where I wasn't returning very many emails. So as I looked back through them, I realized I have a bunch to return. So if you sent me an email or asked for some stickers or something from like a year ago, I'm going to get back to you. I swear to God, I'll get back to you. So don't sit there thinking like, oh man, that dick didn't even like
that guy
reply.
sucks.
Totally. And it's also not because I get a ton of them, but it's just another thing that like I have a hard enough like time putting out the show. So
like I said, emails have already passed. You know, who does email anymore? I got 40-year-old, 50-year-old people saying, "Hey, did you get my email?" I said, no. I check my email maybe twice a week. Shoot me a text. Hit me up on Facebook. Snapchat maybe if you don't want anyone else to see. But I know I didn't get your email.
Yeah, I do not actually want Snapchats from listeners. I appreciate that, though.
But you're saying there's a 4-month backlog?
Well, no, because I just sort of skipped those months.
Okay.
And then,
right.
And that's what happens
just
is
blacked
like,
out.
I let it pile up, and then instead of going back to where I left off, I like start from the most recent ones and start down the list. And so there's like these gaps is all I'm saying. And I apologize. So if you asked me for a sticker and didn't get one, just ask again. I won't be, it's like totally cool. Or if you send an email to me and I didn't get back to you, just send another one.
And for authenticity purposes, I have sent Chris emails, and I see him at least once a week, and he just doesn't know I sent him an email. So don't feel bad if you're in like Australia or whatever.
What were you sending me emails about?
The climate in Sweden.
Oh, right.
And getting free stickers.
Yeah.
Still
pretty standard stuff.
Still no free stickers.
Still no free stickers.
We're sitting here
I
with
live
them.
700 feet from him.
Does the guilt start to build where you don't want to respond to the emails and the thing you
right.
To a certain
Exactly.
extent. To a certain extent.
All you email
it
back
does.
is I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I know people have gotten those from me. All right. But I don't want to spend any more time on that. Just, again, I apologize. This is a one-man show over here. And, I have things to do. I have like a living to earn. I have a girlfriend to keep happy. I got to go rock climbing. And I got to play music. Those 4 things. That's all that makes my world go round.
And email.
And emails. So, all right, then moving on. One of the things I got from I get from a lot of listeners, and I went back and looked for them, and I couldn't find them all. So if you wrote in about this subject, I apologize that I'm not pointing out your specific email, but more of this is like kind of some topics that people are like kind of repeatedly asking me about, but maybe aren't good, aren't sort of big enough or wide enough for a complete show. So we're gonna get to some of these, and okay, I'm gonna this is from Tristan, but I got a bunch of these kind of things, and this is the ethical question being: what should we do with people at the crags who don't know what they're doing? I ask about sport mostly because for the most part, you at least know something when you get to trad climbing. I disagree with that. But then again,
Agreed.
I have some evidence from Todd Keats that it isn't necessarily true. Okay. My sport climbing example being One weekday at a local slab sport crag, I ran into a couple high school kids who were about to lead a pitch and asked me how to tie a figure 8 knot. So I showed them, which about a half hour later led to my rescue of them off the top of the 5-7 when they couldn't figure out how to get down. Had I not helped, they could have climbed with a bad knot. Because I did help, it just delayed the inevitable. So what do? I don't have time to teach them everything or set up top ropes for them. Do I tell them to go home or take a course with a guide, or tell them they shouldn't be here? Do I help a little and leave the rest up to fate? Basically, I've run into this a bunch of times. And when I was a guide, it was a problem, but I've also run, and maybe I've been this person as well. But like, you're at the cliff and whoever rocks up, you don't know them, you've never seen them before, but they start doing like really sketchy shit. Okay. Like, not belaying correctly or at all on occasion. A lot of times it's like an older guy with his kids that can cause these problems, I've found. A guy who's like, not in the kind of shape that he's probably a climber, but he's sort of posturing as one. And you just start to watch crazy shit go down. And then, if you approach these people, sometimes they can get all up in your grill. Have you guys ever had that happen?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
See, I haven't had that happen.
I haven't either.
If I ever approach someone, for the most part, they're way out of line. I'm rarely approach anyone, and unless it's like death defying. There's a line in climbing that I feel like there's a possibility of death, or you're just you might take a big whipper, or there might be some problems. But I've never really actually run into anyone coming back at me, because I was like, well, hey man, you're about to kill yourself.
Right.
You can just pull that one out.
And they're cool with that?
No, well, they're like, well, yeah, no, I wasn't.
Right.
Right.
Simon, you must be much more of an intimidating force than I am, because I have not experienced that same thing when talking to people about their climbing technical experience. I think it's just, I think of like spring break, Red Rocks, and climbing at any walls that are there, and just the amount of things that you see that are going wrong at any given point. And I think, you just kind of need to know when to approach people, when not to approach people. And typically you can kind of feel that. But I've definitely had the kind of going over there and being like, and actually, like, one thing that comes to mind is climbing at the Gunks, and BJ and I were there, and it was my first time at the Gunks, and you're just seeing all these people from the city that are 15 feet back from the wall, sitting down on the ground, while their, like, buddies, like, totally, like, wigged out and can't get a piece in and is about to come off the wall, and you can just see what's going to happen, and you kind of kindly try to make a mention, and it's just not very well received.
Was those younger people that we're talking about?
No, actually, I kind of think of that, and I don't know, like probably like 30, 40s, fairly young, but definitely not like newer college climbers or anything like that.
Do you ever find yourself, when you see something like that, walking away sometimes? Like,
well, it's funny you mentioned that, because
get out of here.
I approach this question from a different perspective. I'm like the newest climber in this group by far and away, a couple seasons under my belt, if that. And so I am very reticent to ever interject with any type of knowledge, because I just suffer from extreme, like a lack of confidence.
Yeah, maybe it's the right way. Maybe they're doing it right.
Right, indeed.
I
climb with good guys who keep me alive. So, but anyway, I would agree with Simon that if there's an egregious, like a grotesque body harm, imminent scenario coming on, I would interject.
And you can't always tell.
Well, you can't always tell. This did happen, ironically. I was retreating from Half Dome about a month ago. We got hit with a snowstorm, and the guys ahead of us, everyone had attempted to do it in a day. There's no way we were going to do it. A snowstorm was just barreling down on us. The guys ahead of us were really slow and definitely didn't have the kind of the skill set for that climb. As they were rappelling, their rope wasn't long enough for the station. Oops. And they started panicking extreme and all this thing. My partner happened to be kind of had the mindset of like, we just need to get out of here because these guys are going to cause their own issue. Like, we just don't want to be part of this. The storm's coming on us. We have to watch out for ourselves. And the long story short of it is, I actually ended up catching this guy with a foot extended, some gear of his that he had dropped, some essential gear, because he had panicked, taken himself off the rope. he was grabbing a fixed line that he didn't know if it was attached to anything strong. And it was just like a shit show unfolding in front of me. He panic slipped off rappel completely, could have free solo died. I grabbed his stuff, handed it back to his belay partner, and just kind of was like, you guys need to slow down, chill it out. And they made it fine. But it was like a very kind of interesting scenario because I probably wouldn't have been very far from their mindset had I not had a very confident partner who had a ton of experience and rock guide.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So it's hard for me to interject and say there's a clear cut way to interject with people. Yeah. It's kind of a touch by touch basis.
But what you said you got to slow down. It's simple.
Yeah.
Short phrase.
Totally.
We don't have to go up to people and give them a whole tutorial on rock climbing.
Right.
Maybe just give them one or two. Slow down. Look what you're doing.
Yeah.
They might have the basics, but they might not be remembering all the basics. So.
Well, and Simon constantly corrects my technique, which is awesome. And there's a way to do it correctly.
Steve, you're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong, dude. Come on, man. You look like an asshole. And it's
never an asshole.
No. But actually, all joking aside, Simon does it correctly. And he's just hey, hey man, you might want to do it this way. And it's just quietly, not making him look like a jerk or her, could be either way. Quietly just offering suggestions that would keep them much safer, I think, goes a lot longer than calling the guy out or the person out and just
because that's when someone gets defensive.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I would too.
Yeah.
If someone came up to me and was hey dude, do it this way, I'd be like, no, I'm going to do it this way.
Yeah.
Kind of
this is what I do.
Basic interpersonal communications.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think what's hard to watch is when you see the leader of the group who obviously does not know what's going on, and they have 2 or 3 friends with them that are just smiling and happy and so excited to be out, and you just know that those people have no clue how much they are not in a solid situation with a good person that they're out with,
Totally. I totally agree, and I think there is an ethical obligation to keep people from dying.
Well, the other issue is simply the deal is if they screw up, you're on the rescue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you can just look over there and go, oh yeah, I knew that was going to happen, bro, and just keep belaying or suddenly the whole cliff is involved,
Right.
Very true. Yeah, that's part of it.
It was funny, Chris, because on that Half Dome escapade, as we wrapped down, there were a couple, it was the Yosemite cleanup, and there were a couple of SAR guides at the base and who had come up to clean, but recognized that there were some climbers on the face and that a storm was coming in. So they were kind of ooh, potential rescue operation, potential money in our pocket. So they told these guys, these guys, their rope didn't make it to the ground on their final rappel. And they're just wrap off the ends, down climb, it's all good. And we were dudes, do not say that. These guys could totally do that and deck and but they're we need the money. I was dudes, no. It's all good fun.
Rescue bait.
Yeah.
It's like setting the forest on fire. To go
totally.
Yeah, exactly.
Shit happens too.
All right, so I guess it just comes down to trying to figure out a way to approach it. Again, I agree with you, Simon. If it's imminent death, you got to step in. And I think with a lot of things with climbing, that the ego is such this thing that's wrapped up in it, and approaching a certain type of person, it's just never going to work. And I've got, like I said, I've gotten more emails than just this one about this in terms of people who've had the experience that Tracy had, where their advice was met with especially, and unfortunately, especially guys, they're just really prickly about anybody telling them what to do. So,
well, what's the most egregious thing you've ever seen?
Well,
this figure 8 nonsense sounds.
Well, I used to guide up at Stony Point. Yeah. Which is north of LA. There's probably some Stony Point aficionados listening.
Everywhere.
Yeah, bro. Actually, I just posted something about it. Somebody said they were going some horrible bouldering area, and I was talking about Stony Point because it's in the San Fernando Valley, which is the pornography capital of the world.
Yeah, it was.
Boom.
Yeah. It was no longer.
Where is Brazil?
Well, I heard the San Fernando
Iowa?
Valley actually put some pretty stringent rules.
Oh, right. We're going to take this part out because Tracy is an educator. Anyway, but
Thanks for protection.
so I did actually
Protection. Chris is protecting me. It's good.
I did actually sort of witness from afar a little shoot going on one time there, but that's a whole nother story. Anyhow, but yeah, just there's a lot of sketchy people there. It's like an urban. Anytime you have like an urban crag,
like the gunks.
Yeah.
I grew up climbing in the gunks.
You did,
and though I wasn't
too
trad
close.
climbing, I was bouldering or masturbating in a whorehouse, as a lot of other people will say. I was bouldering in the gunks, and
what does that even mean?
people say that if you're bouldering in the gunks, you're masturbating in a whorehouse. But the bouldering is quite good.
Yeah,
I don't understand the analogy.
Because you're not like having sex.
you're
You're
not
not going all the
hitting-
way. You're not hitting the real
gotcha.
goods. You're not getting the goods.
Yeah, I got the goods. Anyway,
not
I
getting in
see
the crack.
the Ranger truck go up and
Tracy's
down
an
the road.
educator. We're going to take that part out.
Come on, is that going to be
Sorry, Tracy.
gunks? And there's lots of, yeah.
Yeah. So in the gunks, you get all walks of people. You get everyone from the city, and that could just be anyone. Anyone who gets their hands on a rope and a harness, and then they just go for it.
But yeah, the Stony Point thing too. Yeah, I mean, I just used to guide there, and it was like you just take a moment and walk the top of the cliff and look at these anchors, and like, there was only a couple times where I was just like, stop. Like, you guys, hold on a second, Usually it was little things, and that's, if they'd learned something, then there was like there's a backup, like, oh, these two pieces suck, but this one's bomber, so we'll just kind of let this go or whatever, So it does come down to that. It's like the death-defying versus, is this just going to be...
Exactly. Is it good enough?
Yeah, good enough.
Exactly. I think that's the key to a lot of these questions at the crag. Is it good enough? It's not prime, because as climbers, as good climbers, you generally try to make everything as prime as you can, and that's how you can climb for a long time, incident free. But there's people that can just is it good enough, and they'll get through, and then they'll learn, and then they might get to a point where it's prime, but. As long as it's
all right. Well, let's move on to something lighter. I don't know if that actually answered the question. It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
One last thing I'll say is that when I was guiding, I used to guide in El Dorado Canyon, and oftentimes, let's face it, if you're doing a beginner group, you're at the beginner cliff, and so you're going to run into a lot of these people. And I would just like get up and pack up and move, and just be like, "This is making me nervous. I don't want to be a part of a rescue in a little while."
Right. That was my buddy's reaction as well.
So let's
get out of here.
There's this route over here I want to do, and we're going to go around the corner and like get away from Johnny and his kids or whatever.
Totally.
So, all right. Well, moving on. The episode, I think it was like 54, 55, Ladies' Night episode, garnered a whole bunch of responses, and one of the interesting things about that, now that you're here, Tracy, is that some of the responses to the girls on that episode talked about some of the same things that Grayson talked about on your episode 15, about the advances of male climbers. And for some reason, there was some incredulousness in the emails that followed Grayson's episode, particularly from the men. They just couldn't believe that guys would be quite that forward.
I can't believe they would do that.
I know. And yet the women, I guess Grayson's a little younger than these ladies were, but they corroborated basically all of her stories in other ways. The lean in, the date that's not a date, but it's a date, climbing date. One person thinks it's a date, one person thinks it's not a date, that sort of things. I got a lot of confirmation following the ladies' night, several emails of this has happened to me, and I hate it how I can't ask some guy to go climbing without him thinking that we're going to sleep together or whatever, and that's unfortunate. But on the other side of the thing, I have a simple email here from Will, and Tracy's kind of here to help answer this one actually specifically. So he sent me an email about a bunch of different things, but he says, thanks for taking the time to respond, and thanks for the tips. I have come to need some new information since I sent that last email. How about how to pick up a climber chick?
Is that the end of his question?
Yeah. Well, he goes on, but basically that's his question. How to pick up a climber chick.
Well, do you want Tracy?
Well, no, actually,
I think all of us should
why don't we wait?
answer.
Why don't we wait?
Yeah.
Why don't we
I'm
wait
kinda
on
interested.
Tracy's? Yeah.
I'm interested to hear what you guys have
What
to
do you
say.
think, Simon?
Okay. I got a perspective on this. I'm married, first of all, so I've been out the game, but I still know that you do not focus your shot around
energies.
rock climbing. Do not do that. You must first establish that you're not weirdo and you're relatively smart. I'm not going to have to say smart because you don't have to be smart, but just you got to start where everyone else starts. The only thing you got up on anyone is that you're at a climbing gym and you can meet. There's girls there, so it's not like you're a climber. I'm a climber. Well, yeah, huh? What do I do? All right,
let's go to the van.
Yeah, it doesn't work like that. So, a simple way is like, hey, you want to grab a cup of coffee? You know, keep it mellow, and you gotta sense something first. You can't just be like, you can't just you know, shoot in the dark. Yeah. You gotta sense something. Is there something going on? Yeah. Then go grab a cup of coffee, maybe get some dinner, and then climbing comes into play later.
Okay.
That's
a good point.
That's a really smart take on it, because you're not just asking him to go climbing, because they obviously like climbing. You obviously like climbing. So
Correct.
that's where like the waters get a little muddied, where the girl just thinks that they're going climbing and that's something they like doing, and the guy thinks it's a date.
Boom.
But the coffee and the dinner thing, that's money right there. That's a good tip.
You know, that's your same old. That's what they say.
Right,
that's what you see all over the place. But that's how it works.
The girls on the episode said that same thing too. Like don't just jump to the climbing thing. How about we do something normal?
The climbing thing is your closer.
Well,
it's like, you know, he's all right. He's cool. I mean, he's kind of funny. He's kind of smart. He smells weird, but he's a climber.
Right.
There you go. That's your closer.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The problem, I think, is that a lot of climbers, you know, I've made this observation. We were, a lot of us, the outcasts, wherever we came from, you know, whether it was like a lot of the folks I know who got into climbing weren't good at other sports, weren't necessarily, they found it later to find themselves. And so a lot of times they don't have these basic skills of like, hey, how to approach a girl. So instead of actually talking to them, they just like shadow them at the gym and try to do like hard problems in front of them or something.
Well, then
you know,
spooking up on them.
I can't help you.
Right.
But
exactly.
I
You gotta
think,
have some basic skills.
Whoa.
yeah, but that's much more the norm, like the overshadowing and you did a boulder problem, let me hop on here and do a couple man grunts and show you
from
how
the
tough
female
I am.
perspective. That is the norm.
I really do think it is.
Damn.
Yes. My catch, Mr. BJ Sabara himself.
Yes.
Love you, BJ. I mean, he was like, we had this like 6-year-long climbing relationship where we would talk on the phone once a month when we worked on Climbing Magazine, and then we went on a climbing trip together, strictly climbing. And then halfway in, we were like, "Oh, okay, we like each other. That's pretty cool." But it was in a different place because he was just literally respecting me as a climber and as a partner, and we went to climb all this fun stuff in City Rocks, and then we kind of came together after that.
Yeah.
But before BJ, that was the vast majority of climbing guys that I met.
Damn.
Yeah.
See,
unfortunately,
when I heard that episode, avid listener, I thought, who are these people?
Right. Who are these guys?
Who are these dudes?
The lean in.
Especially the lean in, that harness, or the belay drop for the kiss.
Sure.
I was like, who? So I was almost like, man, these gals are picking the wrong dudes for sure. But you know, no.
But
I trust Tracy,
you
for
are
sure.
new to the climbing scene, and
Totally.
Carbondale is like this little bubble of like really quite experienced climbers, and so
Right.
like a lot of the people that you're probably used to would
Right.
never do that.
They're
you
also
know?
like socially pretty normal.
Yeah. But Boise,
Right.
Idaho, where I'm from, like very small amount of climbers and just very large amount of people who are just getting into it, and people who are, you know, I mean, and I really do feel like in Boise is kind of still falls the standard of like the majority of climbers that are in that town are men, and the very, very small minority are women. And so it's kind of like you know, there's definitely like this, you meet a climber girl and you're like, oh my gosh, it's a little different, like Boulder.
Right.
Yeah, a little different than Boulder
I
or
climb.
Carbondale or other communities.
Totally.
Sure.
Yeah.
I got one more little nippet, and it's simple. Just snip it.
Okay.
Sorry. Just tell a girl, just compliment her. Tell her she's climbing well.
Yeah.
That's your very first in. Hey, nice job. They like to be told they're pretty. They don't hear it often. That's one you can go on a limb with that has worked for me in the past.
In a climbing gym. That's
See,
I would go that first. I would
kind of go all social justice on you like that and be like, really? You just met me and you're commenting on my looks?
No.
Are you objectifying me as
I'm not talking
piece
about
of meat?
Yes.
What are you doing there, Simon?
That's not first. That's not my first. That's not my first go-to. No, of course not. I would say, hey, nice job on that climb. And then maybe if the conversation progressed a little more, we'd talk about some other stuff. Maybe towards the end of the night, it's like, maybe it's the second or third time I've seen her at the gym. I'd say.
So you're stalking her. You know her patterns.
No, I'm not stalking her, Steve.
You know her patterns. She likes to warm up over there.
Exactly.
She likes she's working on that problem. She's gotten that one.
Hey, she gonna
so
try
I will
the yellow
place,
one today?
I'll place myself strategically in between the blue and the yellow.
Hey, buddy, beat it. I'm spotting her.
Okay, so
No, but eventually you move your way up the line. You know, you give some nice comments, you make some regular talk, and then eventually you actually have to tell her how you feel. You know, you say you're very pretty, and then not weird like, hey, you're pretty hot, right? But just a simple like, you know, you're very pretty, and girls don't hear that too often, especially out in front. And then you'll see, you have to pick that up wherever it goes. If they say thank you and move away, then you're done. Let that one go. Game over. All right, move on.
I cold shot across the bow.
I could never.
Sure.
I don't think I
would
could
never
that.
do that.
Like,
that's not my game at all.
Later, I might.
Right.
Hold on. What's your game?
Well, humility.
What do
we
you
haven't
have?
heard from Dilk.
We haven't heard from Dilk.
Humility comes forefront for me. Again, I'm new to the climbing scene.
Wait. How does that manifest itself? When you say humility in terms of interacting with this said girl climber.
So I guess Simon has set up this scenario where we're in a gym, right? And so say we climbed a route, and then if you do happen to strike up a conversation, don't just talk yourself up. I was outside doing this. I was doing that. Like, don't bro it out with how sweet you are. That just is bottom line. And I was going to say be yourself, but it sounds like from Tracy's knowledge that that doesn't work for most dudes because they've been either in a basement their whole life and then in a gym or God knows where they've been.
I think that could be really good advice because I think typically, when I think back to college and pre-BJ, it was a lot of guys who weren't trying to be themselves. They were trying to impress me with how much they'd done. And
they assume a new identity in the climbing gym, right? And so they're all of a sudden I'm a climber.
Yep.
And they become a little more macho, maybe. I don't know, something like that.
And I kind of feel like for me, it's there's always that. I shouldn't say always, but with the majority of guys, there was that snap judgment of just assuming that I was either a new climber or didn't lead or wasn't really that involved in climbing. And I think that's really a kind of a big myth that's within a lot of guys. They're wanting to stripe up the conversation and talk about their experience, and they have no clue maybe that person that they're talking to and what they've done and what they've accomplished regardless of their sex.
That's a huge mistake, and I think that's been illustrated on this show quite a bit.
Yes.
I mean, there's been a lot of amazing women on this show that have climbed way harder than anyone else here at this table here, and we ever will.
And even outside of some of those really high-performing women, there's just a lot of very skilled, technically sound women who are rock climbers, and
absolutely.
With the top, everyone gets pulled to the top. People are getting pulled up.
Chris, to answer back to your question, what does humility really present itself? I was reminded of a story a while ago. I was working on a project, and it's 3 guys, 1 gal, and one of the gentlemen in the project was wont to take his shirt off at all moments of the day. He happened to be a little bit overweight, and unfortunately for him, you couldn't tell with so much body hair that even if his shirt was off, it looked like he had clothes on. And so it was a hot summer day, and he just needed to cool down. But the gal in our group presented my friend, who was the project leader, with her problem, which was she understood this to be a microaggression. And this is a term, I think, from 3rd wave, maybe 4th wave feminism. I'm not really up on my feminist theory, but it was a new term to me. Several waves deep.
Microaggression.
Microaggression.
Okay.
And so she interpreted the act as being a means to dominate this scene by taking his shirt off.
Sort of silverback,
exactly.
Chest pounding.
Exactly. And honestly, I would never have. He wasn't smart enough to really play that level of game because that's like
he was just sweaty and hot because he had a lot of body hair.
He wanted to chill it out.
Poor guy.
Totally.
Well, and
but I learned a lot from this lesson. What I learned was that there is another perspective out there, and like by having humility, you're just like, oh, even if I'm really hot, like it might offend some folks.
Well, and I think it was episode 54 with the ladies, the trio.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they mentioned, like the guys taking their shirt off. But I feel like for me, it's like a little desensitized in the climbing world just because there's, climbers are like...
Guys wear capris all the time. Like, if that's not desensitized, I don't know.
I agree.
Totally,
if I saw that dude on the
most
street,
of the time,
like,
guys taking shirts off just want to cool down.
Yeah, and I probably wouldn't read into that. Yeah. Well, and I would just say kind of like my last interjection would be a really big part of kind of getting to know BJ and being wooed by him, I guess. The courtship would be that we could have conversations that were not about climbing. Awesome. And I'm a climber and I love climbing, and I really don't like talking about it that much unless I'm on the Enormocast, of course. I like listening to it for sure. But
thank you for putting that caveat.
But I really do like being able to engage in like another form of communication about the world or your life.
Informed
exactly.
Conversation.
Exactly.
Grab her first. Somehow
isolate,
then bring climbing.
Don't grab her. You're spreading the wrong message.
You didn't mean literally.
No kissing.
That's a micro.
No bad touch.
No
like micro or major aggression.
Yeah, right. That's like not even microaggression.
That's a felony, son.
Unless, of course, you're spotting her.
Right.
Spotting her. There you go.
All right, well, let's not talk about spotting gropes. Because the girls didn't even get into that, but I know that's a thing.
You groped me a few times.
So
I appreciate the spot.
You're a big man. It's hard to catch you. I have to use all my hands and grip you.
I felt safe.
All right. So I guess our takeaway is basically the same thing the girl said. If you're going to pick up a girl, like, just do what you would normally do. And if you don't have any game, which I think really that's the problem, is that climbers have a tendency to be these sort of a little bit like out of the norm, like not pickup artists. And so they're a little awkward, and they're like, well, here's the one thing I am really good at is climbing. Right. So that's what I'm going to use. But you just got to be a normal person, I guess, and just be nice and humble.
And don't assume that every girl who even if it's just you and her on a climbing trip, don't assume that she wants to date you or be with you unless you've had that conversation. And
the whole date that's not a date thing is a whole nother thing. But I think we hashed that out on that episode. There was a couple other ones too that people asked me about breaking up with climbers, like who are your girlfriend or boyfriend, and I believe I responded to them too, but it just seemed like that wasn't anything specific. I mean, breaking up with people sucks. So like, whether you're climbing, you're either like dividing up your music, or you're dividing up your climbing gear. It's like the same thing.
Worst part
your
about
furniture or whatever.
If you only have one climbing area and you have to see them every weekend.
Yeah, well, I guess that is a problem. But I mean, I think every couple has groups of friends, and now you're a climbing partner.
Right.
So
all right.
But we don't need to go into that. But I think the reason I brought it up is because I think both things are just normal. Like, climbers are in the end are just normal people too, and so
totally.
Another question is that's related to that episode that I wanted to ask you guys because two of us are married. Simon, not married to Tracy. You guys are married to different people, separate people. Steve and I are not married, but we both are currently in. Are you still in a relationship?
I am.
Okay, good.
Yes,
happily. So we really
very
got
happily.
A good group of folks asked about the single life.
Yeah, okay, so here's this thing. I had a non-climber ex. Okay, he would climb with me in the gym sometimes. Oh, this is from Yvonne. Okay. I had a non-climber ex who would climb with me in the gym sometimes and like the outdoors, but isn't really interested in climbing outside for several years, who was super jealous of every male climbing partner I've had. While I understand that for most guys, the thought of getting together with you had probably crossed their mind at least once, regardless of who you are, I would think that he would have more trust in me. That got frustrating because every time I tell him about a new male climbing partner, he would be really negative about the whole thing and act insecure about it. He doesn't do that if it's a girl, even though I've climbed with single lesbians. Whoa. I felt guilty every time I go on a climbing trip because he would make comments like I'm not spending time with him or whatever, even though I would go on a trip like once a month. Mm-hmm. So anyway, they broke up. And then she goes on, it seems like good riddance in retrospect. But I do sometimes wonder if me climbing with guys has made him even more insecure and led to our relationship not working out. What do you say? Do you get jealous if your girlfriend climbs with other guys? I don't sleep in the same tent with them or anything. I actually like climbing with attached climbers, especially if I'm also friends with their girlfriends, because it does take part of the awkwardness out of the equation. But I do wonder if their girlfriends are secretly resentful of me as well. Whoa. Mm. So the issue here is the significant other, hereby referred to as the SO, climbing with or jealous of you climbing with people of the opposite sex. And I think she sort of nailed it on the head to a certain extent. I feel like maybe guys have a little more problem with this, but you're here to tell us if that's different.
Well, one experience that kind of comes to mind, I've actually only really had a meaningful relationship with one non-climber, which is kind of crazy to think about. But, the circles are pretty close and you get to know people. But that experience was kind of opposite of hers. He was actually not a climber and he didn't have really any desire to be. He would go out once or twice a year, maybe. And I dated him for about 2.5 years, but it was just a very full, trusting relationship. So really what it kind of came down to in the end is that I loved climbing and I found myself on trips all the time with lots of people, primarily guys. And again, in Boise, just kind of not having as many women, I'd be on a trip with like maybe sometimes 1 and sometimes 6 kind of guys, whether down to like the Sierras or Red Rocks. And it was never an issue. It was just kind of, he didn't enjoy it and came on 1 or 2 trips and just kind of found it wasn't his thing and he was cool with it. So, hearing that story, kind of the insecurity piece, like I don't think that matters if you're a climber or if you're not a climber. Like, I'm not really sure as far as like ladies, what you guys have with your experience with girlfriends and climbing, and maybe it's more rare that you're partnering up with a single female girl.
Is that is it is. And it is more of an issue for women because all my women climbing friends, that's one of the things they're bummed about is that they don't have more women to climb with. It's a
male-dominated
And so
sport.
they want to climb all the time. Yeah. And we're talking, like climbing all the time. They're going to have to climb with dudes because it's just, part of the ratio. So that's kind of why I said that maybe this is a bigger problem for girls than guys. So anyway, so just wanted to interject there. But have you guys had the opposite at all?
Yeah, again, I'm pretty new to the whole thing, but my girlfriend doesn't really climb nearly as much as I do. Totally chill with me climbing whomever I rope up with. Trust my choice that my partner is just someone who's going to keep me safe, and it's definitely going to be a non-sexual adventure. Typically, I'm so destroyed by any rock climbing I do that if I, for whatever reason, entertain the idea that I'd ever want to do something outside the relationship,
way too tired,
couldn't possibly do it. So
way too tired,
devastated.
Steve, for your relationship, we should cut that whole section. You should just cut the whole section. Julia, right? Julia doesn't need to hear that. No,
but it's goddamn true.
You got to cut that.
I would.
It's totally true.
I would have, but man,
that's gold.
Okay.
It's true.
It's all about being forthfront to your significant other about who you're climbing with.
Actually, can I say this, that your wife doesn't really climb?
Barbara doesn't climb. That's my wife, and she does have a passion, which is very important to the whole thing.
Yeah,
she rides horses, so your significant other having a passion allows them to understand the amount of effort and work that you put into your passion, into rock climbing. And rock climbing takes a whole lot of work and passion and time. And so that's kind of a basis, if they can understand how much time, how difficult it is to get a partner sometimes, and you got to be out there all the time with someone. So that if they can understand that, that's step one. Step two is you telling them who you're climbing with and being forefront, just saying, hey, I'm going out with Elizabeth. And she's like, Elizabeth? Who's Elizabeth? She's a climber in the valley, blah, blah, to give them the rundown, and don't try to pretend or hide anything, and you're not going to, spark their interest. And even, I even have them, this isn't on purpose, but we'll you'll switch off who drives, have them come to the house and then pick you up or vice versa. And they get to meet the other person, and it's like, okay, they might even become friends or something.
Right.
Yeah.
But boils on that insecurity issue.
But truly, is it... It's just like, I just think that like the fact that this was from a woman is important, because I mean, the fact is I don't, if I'm desperate for a partner, like I have 10 guys I can call before I need to call a woman that maybe, my girlfriend doesn't know, so it's like presenting, where the opposite is true with the woman who wants to climb. She's like, okay, well, I've called my 2 or 3 girlfriends that are good go-tos, and now I'm on to the dudes. So I think it sort of presents a bigger problem in terms of women with guys who are sort of jealous. But in the end, I mean, I guess it does come down to the person too. I mean, some are more secure than others.
I think it does. I mean, the Beach actually, this is really cute. Sorry, Beach, that I'm like saying this on the Enormocast, but he actually has this like piece of paper that's like 8.5 by 11 that's like climbing partners in the valley, and like everyone's name that's on there.
It's like
for,
a phone tree.
Both
I got one of those. Sick. I
totally,
do too,
totally. And it's kind of like, it's like, I would say that 95% of the names that are on that list just happen to be dudes, and it's like Tracy and BJ's climbing, climbing partner list. But I mean, do you kind of feel like, your girlfriend obviously climbs, and she probably goes out with people that aren't you, and I'm assuming not just female partners.
I've been out with Steph.
Yeah. I mean, how does that make you feel?
When was that? I don't remember that.
I mean, you weren't there?
The truth is that like I have a theory, and it may be sort of Neanderthal or whatever, but is that if you have a significant other, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, husband, wife, like it is, no matter what the situation is, whether it's climbing or anything else, it's very difficult to introduce a new friend of the opposite sex to the relationship. And what I mean is that when you guys get together, everyone brings friends, and the person that you meet and get to know, they get to know those friends. But, even if you were just at work and you came home and you said, hey, honey, there's this new girl at work, and I'm going to go and, go rafting with her tomorrow. Like that would never work. Like any relationship would be stressed by something like that. And if it's a real solid relationship, of course, they're going to be like, well, sure, I guess, like, is it some sort of work function? No, she just seems great, and so we're going.
She's very, very cute.
Right. Or vice versa,
That's why you got to keep it in context.
Yeah.
Right. I agree.
Right.
You're climbing. If climbing's your thing, you have to make sure your significant other understands you need partners.
Totally.
And you have climbing partners that are female and male.
Right.
If I'm like, hey, I'm going to go tubing with this girl. And that might bring up some red flags.
Yeah, that would definitely be a red flag.
I'm not a big tuber most of the time.
Yeah,
right.
but I do think that
not from what I've seen.
What
You're going, what?
I'm all right at tubing. Come on.
What Yvonne said in her note though about the like boundaries of not sleeping in tents, all that stuff is truly, truly important.
Totally.
You just have to still totally not
unless
even
it's really cold.
muddy those
Right.
waters. Yeah,
Right.
I don't know. That can get dangerous, Simon.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So
even if it's cold.
So I guess the answer is that, I mean, every situation is different, but I think both people, in this case Yvonne, they have some responsibility to understand the boundaries of a certain thing. And coming back to this thing about guys going on dates that aren't really dates with girl climbers, because that's the other problem as a guy. You sort of have this track record of understanding the intentions of a lot of guys out there. And you yourself are like, well, I think this woman who I'm with is super hot. So that's why I'm with her. So all these other guys must think she's super hot as well. So, where is the line going to be crossed with this guy? Is he, who knows what he's thinking, So I think it's a tricky thing. So, I mean, I guess you just have to I think it's easy to be like, well, if he trusted me, he'd let me go climbing with this guy. Mm-hmm. Yes, but why don't you have a little bit of sense of maybe
a little leniency on
of like, knowledge. Well, you know, this guy's out of nowhere and he's never met him before, and like you said, like Simon, like introduce make sure there's a context for the whole thing. So
it's like, yeah, who's that guy sitting in the idling car?
Right. The idling Camaro.
Takes one to know one.
I gotta go. Sorry.
He's got like a 78 Trans Am.
I'll be back in 10 hours.
The Firebird Trans Am. He's out there revving it. Bye, honey. He peels out.
Do you want anything for dinner?
Anyway,
all right. What else?
Moving on.
What else?
Keep it moving, baby.
Okay, we'll do this one as sort of the last one. This is kind of a running theme, but I want to read this kind of longer one because it's pretty funny. This is from Tyler. Okay, and he's there's a bunch of stuff that comes before this, but anyway, I'll get to the meat of it. So we roll into a popular Squamish crag. It's kind of busy. Hard dudes have tied up their dogs. Read.
That's a funny sentence.
Read, left to scavenge and bark while they solo something or mountain bike or something. Australian-Hungarian couples are top roping a micro dimple slab made impossibly hard by eliminating the 5-7 flake system on the right. Old dude struggles up a low angle crack despite his sticky rubber knuckle gloves. Things are feeling a bit weird. But this is a wall just minutes from the parking lot at an international climbing destination, so what did you expect?
Oh, boy.
But then, as if on cue, well-known and unnamed local soul climber opens a beer and lights a pre-free solo cigarette. Dude had already been discussed in our party on arrival, but I had not expected the pleasure of his appearance. Sufficiently buzzed, solo soul dude adeptly jumps ahead of me on a classic 5-10 finger crack. He pauses halfway up to light his cigarette and yell at his dog. I let him top out to avoid getting ashed in the eye.
Wonderfully written.
Things felt more surreal than weird at this point, but the true experience had yet to reveal itself. Fellow Americans rock up. Girl puts in headphones immediately as boyfriend eyes a blocky 5.7 and sorts his cams that are, confusingly, racked like nuts. They seem potentially inexperienced but totally unpretentious, and I like that. Headphones are concerning, sure, but what is far more concerning happens next. Boyfriend seems unsteady, placing pro after each move. But that doesn't stop his girlfriend en belay, fully rocking out, taking both hands off the belay device to sort through her pack, find her nail clippers, clean her nails, and then clip her fingernails.
Does she have a gree-gree? Because if she has a gree-gree, that's fine.
No, it's not. No,
auto-blocking.
She managed to get to her toenails, too. I'm literally sick to my stomach at this point, but the rope was fat and the boyfriend was standing on blocks, so who am I to judge? Leading my way up my own crack, I'm suddenly arrested by this stink smell of beer. I turn around and the solo soul has just finished down climbing, lamenting how since the addition of a plastic stint to his heart, it just doesn't beat the same after free soloing.
Whoa.
Local dirtbag calmly asks him, how do you do it, man? Free solo? No, climb with beer in your chalk bag. Every time I try that, I wind up spilling my beer. So that's the tale with that. And I'll get to the question in just a second. This one is from Richard. What are the worst climbing faux pas? Example, when a male boulderer wears no shirt but doesn't forget to keep his beanie on. When, if ever, is it okay to express serious amounts of anger at a partner while climbing on a route? And when you see folks doing something super dangerous, which we just talked about at the cliff, when do you speak up? So let's go to that first one. What are the worst climbing faux pas? Because Tyler here just described one of those scenes where everybody around you is just like acting out in a way that's making you like really uncomfortable. And, you know, I've been places where are super crowded and some guys like soloing around everybody and that drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that one just, I mean, if you're soloing, you're supposed to be alone. I understand, like, you know, Honnold has to climb past people because he's blowing everybody's doors off. But, like, just to be soloing around on, like, a really busy crag is just, like, one of the most annoying things ever. So when you guys think about, like, etiquette at the cliff, and really etiquette deserves multiple shows on the Enormocast, but let's just talk a little bit about sort of social faux pas at the cliff.
Yeah.
I got one
I'm there.
that doesn't start at the cliff. It's not at the cliff. It starts at your house. So when
At my house, or like you, this like general. Okay.
So if I'm offering to drive every time, and you're accepting that offer every time, like that's not what that offer's meant to be like. You know, it's about especially if you both have cars. If one person doesn't have a car, that's understandable. That's already known. But I think it's supposed to be a one-on, one-off type of thing.
Is that directed toward me, Simon?
No, not at all, Steven. Not at all.
The Tiger will take you anywhere,
The
baby.
Tiger takes me a lot of places.
Absolutely.
But no, just over the years I've been climbing, I like it to go one. You drive once, I'll drive once. You drive once,
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
drive
there.
once.
And if circumstances mean
throw some
that
money,
of course,
throw some money,
circumstances,
hook up.
If circumstances happen, then yes, you can flip it. You can. I'll drive 3 times in a row. I don't care,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm not like I'm not your chauffeur. I was a bus driver for a couple years, and I love that, but I'm over it.
Yeah,
I don't drive the bus anymore. The bus doors have shut.
right.
So I'd like to share the responsibility. That's one of my faux pas.
Can I add that like if someone does put in gas money, like
And that's
gas costs a lot more now,
Fact.
and so like $5 or $10 for a trip.
$5. It's
for a
always
trip.
$5.
Yeah.
It's never 10.
That's been standard. $5 has been standard
No one's
since
gonna
I was
give
in 7th
double
grade.
digits.
Yeah,
No one's gonna
exactly.
give double digits for a
$5.
trip to the crag.
Well, I'm just
$5
saying,
like a
like,
gallon of
I've
gas.
gotten like a $5 for like
Give me a
a trip to
McDonald's.
the creek and back. Like, you're just like, oh, thanks.
$5.
Hopefully they're off your 8.5 by 11 list.
Yeah, no,
partners.
exactly.
You're just like, yeah, thanks.
$5?
That got us to like Newcastle, bro. Anyway, so Dilk.
Yeah, mine has to deal with just I found myself enjoying remote climbs, and this comes from a story. I was in Yosemite earlier in the summer. I was up on Braille Book, way up in the higher cathedrals. It's a hard approach, takes a while, and a friend of mine went up there, and it was just us. We thought we had the whole place to ourselves. It's glorious, kind of taking our time, getting all the gear sorted and everything. And my buddy took the first pitch, and this crew of like 4 or 6 popped out of the woods, and they were all out of breath, and it was pretty apparent to me that they had seen us approaching and thought that they could outrun us, but didn't make it. But they promptly just set up station behind me, and then just one of the people just started climbing with not even nary a word, just started climbing right on us. And was like, oh well, I'll just making a belay to the left, and then the person started dropping gear and sketching out, and my partner and I, who enjoyed the climb more for its solace than like its difficulty, its aesthetic quality more than its like technical difficulty. We're just blown away by this crew, kind of indifference to the entire atmosphere that is created by that climb. You hike to that climb, and it's like it is an aesthetic, beautiful line in the middle of Yosemite Valley, high up. You can see El Cap right in your face. I mean, the cathedrals are all there. Other climbers were just enjoying their space, and so to sum up, it was like had they had just kind of quietly said, "Oh, hey guys, nice to make your acquaintance. Sorry to kind of break the zone. We'll be behind you, and let's all enjoy the climb.
Pleasure to meet you all.
Pleasure to meet y'all. Maybe even introduce yourselves." This like almost desire to congregate and then overrun was disgusting to me and my partner, and then their incompetence on top of that, doubly.
Yeah, it's one
disgusting.
thing. It's one thing if you know right off the bat if you're going to be faster than a group. It's like
Exactly.
Well, even then, I wouldn't just jump in front with no words.
Totally.
I'd maybe give a word or two, introduce myself,
Totally.
and then say, "Hey, can we jump in front?" Or
I was aghast.
Show your competence, and then
exactly.
go on ahead and continue upward motion
and we
faster than the group that you just gypped.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And my partner is a 5'12" crack climber, a 5'13" sport climber. He's not an incompetent person. Like, we made awesome upward progress, and we were not dallying, and I was just aghast at their lack of proficiency and manners, It just seemed like that was a major faux pas in my mind. Like, if you think of Yosemite and like the desire for like, Yvon Chouinard, Tom Frost, those guys going out into the vertical world, like enjoying solace and getting away from everything and like finding themselves and, having an adventure. These guys shattered every single thing about
honestly,
that.
It was kind of hard.
Insane.
I mean, Yosemite isn't quite
you're gonna
that
need a time
solace
machine,
place,
bro.
though,
Totally.
It's not like that anymore.
No, it's definitely not.
Passing people on routes, I think, happens all the time. But I do think that, like, if they came back up behind you, then that just wasn't right.
Yeah,
like, you guys were in front.
Totally.
Got up there.
And, like, again, not to be a braggart, but they certainly didn't pass us. They had numerically 3 times our number. Mm-hmm. There was nothing about it that, had they waited half an hour, we would have never seen them, which we didn't for the rest of the day. We climbed so much faster. Had they just waited and chilled, like everyone would have had the day that they
pass them then? Again?
No. They never even regained us. Like, our pitch was
they just
higher.
jacked up your first pitch.
Exactly.
And, like, tried to get up in your shit.
Exactly. Yeah. And we just climbed around them and much faster.
And they were probably making assumptions about you guys.
Oh, totally.
I'm sure. Like, look at those guys. Like, they're going to move so slow. We're just going to get on this thing.
Yeah, we'll fly past them. Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 things happening there. Is first of all, the assumption that this other group is like, you're better than them. So that's a whole problem there. But
and that didn't even
the passing thing or whatever. I remember back when I used to have time to get, to be a dick on Mountain Project.
Yes.
I don't have time anymore. If anybody,
bummer.
remembers
that's a bummer
those
for
days,
all Mountain Project.
But
that's too many.
I read
emails.
that daily.
I get to be a dick on the Enormocast, so it's fine.
It's even better.
But I remember this was a huge debate, and people were super mad about this all the time, like passing, or people didn't pass, or they tried to pass and then they screwed them up.
Right.
But the truth is like, there is an appropriate time for it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't like sit and hang out underneath a party that's like bumbling along,
right,
without like just losing your mind. But there's a way to do it, and that's what it was always my argument. Like, come up and say, "Hey, how's it going? What's going on? What are you guys doing? Where are you from?"
Common courtesy,
because
common courtesy goes so far.
Yeah.
And my partner and I would, and I'm speaking for him, but we would have been happy to let them go
if they were clearly. Because they also have to give you a chance to like
absolutely
show your mettle, as it were.
Right, for sure. Mm-hmm. So it was just like, I didn't even think about it that much. And again, being a new climber, I wasn't about to just be like, oh, fuck you guys.
Start yanking on the leader.
Yeah.
Hey!
Heckling a little.
Knock it off. Get down here.
I should have caught the cams that they dropped and then put them on my rack and then kept going.
Germs.
Yeah, thanks. But, no.
They weren't nice.
No.
It sounded like they were like friendly people.
No, they weren't. And they just had no common courtesy. It was just common courtesy.
Yosemite.
Just the...
Yeah.
But I love Yosemite. I'll be back.
Word of the night. Just be nice.
Yeah.
Right.
It's pretty easy, actually.
Yeah,
don't be
real
a dick.
easy. Don't be a dick.
Tracy, you've been scribbling various faux pas on a piece of paper.
I do. I actually
anticipate.
Did I jump on one?
I have
of
a
yours?
little list in like orange ink. But yeah, which one of mine do you want to jump on?
No. I'm saying, did I? Jump
Oh
on my
gosh, no.
story?
You
Okay, good.
didn't. I
There
have
it is.
options. In fact, none of them matched your guys's. I would say like I'll mention 2 that are pretty short and pretty isolated. Indian Creek, which is a place that's never talked about it in the Enormocast at all.
Hit a triangle.
2. Should I just say Black Canyon? All right, I did.
Might as well just say Black Canyon. We have the trinity of the 3 right here now, but definitely pooping at the crag is like a huge etiquette for me, and it's mostly because I have dogs and we love our dogs, and we have standard schnauzers because my mom breeds them and gives BJ and I like little puppies, and so we kind of have like the brown beard phenomenon in which like people just have no etiquette about the desert or human waste or any of that, and so that's still a frequent thing, and I feel like there's been so much effort put toward via like Friends of Indian Creek and just education, and people still aren't quite there yet.
If I may interject, Tracy,
yes, please.
I'm a cat guy myself.
Mm-hmm.
A brown beard with a dog means a human has defecated.
Yes,
and that gorgeous little dog has found his way to that site.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for clarifying
Yes.
that, because I was not aware. I
Yes.
thought it was a type of breed.
Oh, did you really? No, there's not a type of breed. And then the owners have to, at some
A
point,
brown-bearded
clean
schnauzer.
clean that via gloves, because human waste, of course, clean that waste
BSI.
off their
Yes, of
animal.
course.
If
It's
your
a really,
cat was there,
really,
the dog would eat your cat's
yeah,
shit too. though.
yeah. Rocks on top of human feces does not keep dogs away from
they can get through that.
eating them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty gross. And then just the other one is, I feel I'd like to hope and like to think that BJ and I are pretty friendly climbers, and we typically are there with lots of friends, and there's ropes up, and we're constantly the people who are moving our ropes and like, hey, if you want to pull this, if you want to do whatever, please do. And I feel like that's probably another etiquette faux pas of mine, is when people are not like that, and you have the college group that's up there for the weekend, and maybe at their battle of the bulge, and they're have all their ropes strung up, and it's kind of just like they've put their marking up, they've peed on the rock, and like no one else can touch it.
Yeah.
And I think that the big thing for us is like that friendliness is huge. If you can just be like, no one's on it, like our ropes are up, we're kind of taking up the cliff, please move it over. Like that's really big down there, I think, for me. It's a big one.
Yeah.
Well, both of those things are universal.
Right.
Yeah, I guess
mean,
they are.
if it's a one pitch climbing area, like.
But I also think the desert environment, it just doesn't go away like it does. Like if you were climbing at Lover's Leap or climbing another place in which you could at least like dig it into the ground, it's just very on top. One sandstorm comes by, wind, and then boom, it's right back at it. You know.
Well, and I agree, and I also think that working at a retail consignment store, I have a lot of time to monitor the mountain project, and that seems to be a thematic reoccurrence. The poop issue, and then, but more importantly, the top roping, who has access, who can stay on it, how long. For example, there's like at least when I last looked, which is pathetic that I'm looking this much, but there's like a 5-page thread of.
You're informed.
This
There's
apparently
nothing pathetic about being informed.
No.
A crew from a Utah climbing club that was supposedly putting up bolts, may or may not have been, on a line on the Fisher Towers, the northeast corner, the Colorado northeast corner. But they took up the whole route for 2 days, and these guys were just bitching that they didn't get to climb it because all these people were on it. And it just comes back to this like top rope etiquette, or who has access to a route. I don't think it's really been pounded out. Like, okay, if so-and-so's there first, they get to have it, or the free climber gets to have it, etc., etc. Like, it seems like an endless rabbit hole.
I think, unfortunately,
discord.
It's just kindergarten rules. You were there first,
totally.
And that's because that's the problem, is that when you're on the shitty end of it,
right?
Not the brown bearded shitty end, but
pun intended.
Is that it seems like it's horrible, but then if you show up with a group of beginners and you want to teach them how to climb, you're going to be at this cliff.
Yep.
And you're going to need that easier route for a while because you've got this person, and this person.
Well, there you go. That a while.
Right.
So you're going to have it for a while. Let someone else climb it real fast.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Yeah, totally.
But if there's like 50 people queued behind you, it's like, how many do you let through? Is there a ticket system?
Well, and then the other thing is that
50 people. Oh my God, crowds.
Yeah, but the other thing is that, and this has happened to me.
You were there first.
This has happened to me for sure. Is the dude or whatever? It's like, let me. Can I jump in here real quick? And then
I'll be real fast.
like 45 minutes later, dude's like hanging on his sixth piece. You're like,
let me just try one more time. Let me try one more time.
That was exactly.
I almost got that move.
That was almost the Braille book experience.
Yeah.
Like, had we let them through.
Although usually with it, like I can just sort of look them up and down and be like, oh yeah, this will go quickly.
Okay, yeah. That's a skill I need to acquire.
No.
There's no judgment on the Enormocast at all. There hasn't been any judgments made tonight about anyone.
No, this is. I'm not.
I don't know.
I've been in the game long enough. I've seen enough BS.
I know. I feel like I have too, but I definitely have been wrong. I've been
love
wrong.
to get
where
blown
you're just
away.
like, damn.
I've been wrong too, and I
look like a goober, but you're solid.
Well, hold on. What's your faux pas? I know we've heard a lot of them because
Tracy.
we are listeners of the Enormocast.
We know his aid faux pas. The whole aid system.
No, that's
is a
fine.
faux pas.
I don't have a faux pas with aid climbing. I just went and did a wall.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I was forced to aid climb.
That's so sick.
Anyway, I agree with all. I've chimed in on all these, but and it's this is sort of ironic because I have this podcast where all we do is talk about climbing or spray, but the thing, and this is a real subtle thing, but like it's not even like a humble brag, but like the somehow incorporating your when you're talking to somebody and they're somehow incorporating their resume into the conversation, like watching someone climb a 5'11", and they remark that move reminds them of, and then they throw out something that's much harder. Like
when I was up on the buttress.
Wow, that reminds me of the second move on the third bolt of the just after the third bolt of this 14B that I did was one time.
Yep.
That kind of like underneath sort of boasting kind of drives me nuts.
Well, it's the only way they know how to get it in there.
Yeah,
because they don't just be like, "Hey, I did this," because they know that's too obvious. Mm-hmm. So they try to throw it in there in any little gap in the conversation that they can.
Yeah.
But
at the same time, I may be guilty of this.
No, and I
just don't hear myself doing it.
Because we like people to know what we did.
I can unequivocally.
We work so friggin' hard on it.
I can unequivocally.
We want people to know we goddamn did it. I did that. I spent 40 days up there, but I did it.
Ahab got the well.
And I want all of you to know.
Right.
Okay?
That's true.
And if I can't just straight out and tell you, I'm going to tell you while you're trying to tell me something.
All right, so you get it. So like I said, I might be guilty of this myself. So who knows? All right, then. I think we've knocked out a listener mail episode. If you guys ever want to be on a listener mail episode, you got to send me listener mail. Keep sending them, folks, and keep listening to the Enormocast. Thanks, you guys, for coming, Simon.
You're welcome. I think you all should Facebook Chris instead of emailing.
That's a good idea. Although I sometimes forget to check the Facebooking, because the problem with the social media, man, is it's coming in like in all these different places. Like,
I can understand that.
Well, look, there's like my email at the Enormocast. There's my personal email. There's the Enormocast Facebook page. There's my personal Facebook page. There's my Twitter account. There's my I mean, it's crazy. Like an old man like me, I can't keep up with this stuff. But yeah, you can send them to Facebook too. Although I didn't pull any of these off Facebook, so maybe that's a black hole,
right?
Where your comment will disappear. I don't know. Steve, thanks for coming.
Chris, thanks for having me.
You're gonna sleep in the driveway tonight?
Most likely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You got to drive Tracy home, though.
No.
I think BJ's going to get her.
BJ's coming to pick me up.
Coming to get you?
We looked ahead and
I asked
that.
him.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Well, we need to get him over here because it's getting late. All right.
You can, but my phone is off right now.
Thanks for coming, Tracy.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Call BJ. Enormocast. Listener mail.
God bless.
Dear guys, words cannot express how much I hate you guys. As we fight our way northward into the great unknown, only that one thing remains certain, that I hate you guys with every tired muscle in my Confederate body. We have taken Topeka, and now I must rally the men onward to Missouri. Because I will not stop until we have won it all, and you guys are my slaves. Because I hate you guys. I hate you guys so very, very much. Yours, General Cartman Lee.
The teachers told me that's where it's at.